spending time listening to Mary Helwig reflect on her life's journey, you will immediately think of two words that weave consistently through her story: relationship and resilience. Growing up in Southern California, Mary was part of a family who had a lifelong relationship with North Park University, where 3 generations of her family had pursued their degrees, some had met their spouses, and formed lifelong friendships. Her parents, Dave and Nancy, met on opening weekend of their freshman year, for heaven's sake, and they've enjoyed a lifelong love story ever since. Mary's older brother, Scott, chose North Park, and she followed suit, arriving as a freshman in the fall of 2002. Her first year was challenging, and Mary was not certain of the fit here at North Park. She found Chicago winters to be cold and dark. Imagine that. She spent spring break of her freshman year when she went home to California checking out other schools that were closer to home, that she might be more comfortable. But that summer, her parents encouraged her to give it one more semester at North Park. Mary agreed. Like so many North Parkers will describe, there was a relationship with a faculty or a staff member that made a significant difference at a very important time in their life at North Park. For Mary, that person was Charlene Sandberg. Mary's words: Charlene called me and asked me to go out for coffee. She sought me out, she took an interest in me, she knew some other family members of mine, and then she offered me a job. She encouraged me to become a student worker in the office of the president. It gave me a place to be. There was a comfort in routine. I was expected to be there, and that was really helpful. The future was looking a little brighter, and by her junior year, she decided to consider the 5-month study abroad experience in Scandinavia during the spring semester. While in Sweden, she developed relationships with a number of friends who would eventually encourage her to consider Alaska for summer employment and eventual year-round internship opportunities with Kayak, the Covenant Youth of Alaska. Upon her graduation in the spring of 2006, Mary got on a plane, flew to Anchorage, and when we were sitting together the other day on a bench in the middle of campus in front of the Johnson Center, Mary smiled and described it like this: just as I was landing in Alaska, that very first time, I looked out the window of the plane and I knew I was home. Upon arrival, she spent a few days at a camp in Unalakleet and quickly signed on for full-time work the next year. That following spring, she witnessed the famous Iditarod sled dog race going through the village of Unalakleet in March of 2007. Pretty interesting, she thought. And on Easter Sunday that same year, as part of a community festival, dog mushers were running kids on sleds all over the community. She had the chance to jump in on a short women's course put on by the Norton Sound Sled Dog Club. And during that race, something happened. Mary had a thrilling experience on that sled, and she was instantly hooked. She began to learn about the sport of dog mushing and the lifestyle that accompanied that. She realized if she wanted to get serious about this, she would have to build the relationships with those that had established kennels and had significant experience in racing. She was willing to start at the bottom, do the grunt work for some Alaska mushers, poop and scoop, she called it, and intersperse this with some assignments as a substitute teacher in the local schools just to pay the bills. After a number of years of that, Mary decided that she did want the opportunity to run Iditarod, and if she was serious, she would have to start and manage her own kennel. No handlers, no help, just make it happen. She sought advice, talked to friends, went on Craigslist to buy equipment. Can you really buy a dog sled on Craigslist? I guess you can. She had a dream of running Iditarod someday, but knew it would take training and experience, including 3 middle distance races to even qualify to run. In mid-June 2015, Mary had decided she was all in. She was relaxing at her home in Willow, Alaska, when a friend texted her and said, "There's a fire up the highway. Hopefully they'll get that fire out, at least get it under control. But just be prepared to go. We have to have a plan." She looked up, she saw the smoke, decided I'll take a few precautions. She packed a small suitcase of clothes, her good parka, her heavy bibs, her wool boots, and a few Swedish keepsakes. Among them, the Bluebird of Happiness, a figurine that her grandmother had given to her, and 2 blankets that had been knitted for her as a child. A neighbor drove by and said, "We have to go now. The police are evacuating everyone." She threw her suitcase in that truck, loaded her own dogs, drove to a friend's house, but not before stopping to help many friends and neighbors along the way, many of them kennel owners themselves. One musher was out of town, so they loaded his sled dogs and got them out. And once she settled at her evacuation home, she went back to Willow to help out other neighbors. "We got 80 dogs out that day," she says, working until 4 in the morning. "We kept hearing reports that my next door neighbor's house was burning. We spent the whole night up with her, just mourning the loss of that house, knowing that she'd lost everything. The next day, we went back. We found out her house was okay, and it was my house that had burned to the ground, completely gone. All that remained was the ash pit where her basement had been. More than 50 homes were burned to the ground that day." Most people would justifiably say, "That's it, I'm done, I've lost everything." But this is one of the places that word resilience comes in. Less than 2 weeks later, Mary attended a picnic in Wasilla and signed up to run the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race for the next March 2016. "I can't fully explain it," she told me, "but those dogs were my life. Partly it would not have been fair to them if I just gave up. They kept me going. They gave me purpose. This is what we have been working toward." And in rebuilding her life and her home, Mary knew that having the goal of running Iditarod out in front of her would keep her taking each next step. The race fed her passion to rebuild. Her dogs needed a kennel, she needed a place to take care of them. And she knew that Iditarod would be more than grueling. If she could get herself through the disaster of the fire, she would be much more prepared for the difficulties of the race. Resilience. Mary's goals in running the Iditarod were threefold. Number 1, finish with happy and healthy dogs. 2, finish by the time to attend the banquet at the end of the race. And 3, try not to finish last. Her experience on that trail was one of true resilience. 3 times she thought her race was over due to setbacks that might have been impossible to overcome. But as Mary described it, at each time that I thought I was done, it happened to be the misfortune of another musher that allowed me to continue, and the relationships that I had with them. The value of the strong relationships among those professionals allowed her the chance to continue. While trying to cross a river with her team, one of her dogs backed out of his harness and took off. Thankfully, another musher, who had lost the trail himself, encountered her dog and brought him in. At another point, she got stuck on the ice with nowhere to safely turn her sled around. Another rookie who had lost her team and fallen off her sled got permission to help her turn that sled around. Finally, Mary cracked and eventually broke a runner on her sled. Well, that's it. No sled, no race. Ironically, she was coming into a checkpoint at a place called Cripple when this happened. She says she crippled into Cripple, but was certain that her race was over. As it turned out, another musher had a team of dogs who had become quite sick and had to drop out. He had a sled, but no dogs. Mary had great dogs, but no sled. She hooked up her team to her new sled and continued on to the next destination, the village of Unalakleet. The entire community met her with open arms and joined in a stirring hymn to welcome her home. After a good rest there, the final push was on, and Mary got word that the last musher behind her had to drop out. So she was last on the trail. She knew she might be called the Red Lantern, the distinction given to the final musher to finish the Iditarod. Even though this had been on her list of things to avoid, she came to learn that for the community, this was a very special honor. With 5 miles to go, and then with 2 miles to go, the community begins to get the word that the last musher is coming in. The people turn out, they line the streets, they cheer and welcome that last runner. So as they began to cheer her, she's given the red lantern to carry across the finish and then extinguish the widow's lamp, indicating that all mushers are off the trail. Mary had done it. She had finished the Iditarod. She had happy and healthy dogs. She attended the banquet, and she had what turned out to be the distinct honor of being the Red Lantern for the 2016 Iditarod. In the 44 years of running this race, only 765 people have ever crossed the finish line in Nome, and only 115 of those have been women. The resilience to try, the resilience to keep going, the resilience to finish. And Mary's reflection today, keep going, keep trying. God can very easily surprise you, take you places you've never dreamed of, or give passion to you in a place for an idea you never considered. North Park equipped me in ways I never dreamed of. Only now can I look back and say how much he helped me to overcome so much. Following God has taken me to some breathtaking places, introduced me to beautiful culture, and prepared me for physical and emotional challenges I never thought I could meet. I decided if I was going to do the Iditarod, I wanted to do it before my 10th reunion at North Park. Well, today, 10 years and thousands of miles removed from North Park, we welcome you back, Mary, to receive our admiration and our respect. You built, maintained, and supported the significant relationships you were called to build. You helped others when they needed help. You were faithful to your friends and your calling. You lost your home, but you never lost your passion. And thank you for sharing your story with us. Thank you for being the model of resilience that you provide today. Ladies and gentlemen, as North Park's distinguished young alumna for 2016, Mary Helwig.
Well, I didn't actually really prepare a speech like Joanna did, so it feels like a little tough act to follow. I kind of want to just echo what she said. And honestly, I'm a little more nervous to be speaking in front of you than I am to be starting a 1,000-mile trek across the wilderness of Alaska armed with just my dogs and myself. Actually, just a quick story, Joanna and I were actually roommates, and so this is pretty special to be sharing this with her. And I'll probably cry too. But I was remembering our senior year, we were roommates, and we were just, we were probably sitting around having coffee in our apartment, and she said, you know, I don't know if you said 5 or 10 years, but she had said, you know, I'm probably gonna be living in Chicago with my fancy job, doing amazing things in the corporate world, and you're gonna be driving a pickup truck with a dog in the front seat, happy as a clam. I've got a truck and I've got a lap that sits in the front seat wherever I go. We just needed to pan the picture out a little bit and attach a trailer that was filled with 20 more dogs. Well, like Mary said, my experience with North Park was a little rough. I came from a wonderful legacy of North Parkers who have done wonderful things for this campus and university. But I had a rough time. But sticking with it, following my parents' advice and coming back and just sticking with it, just that right there taught me a lot, and having that relationship with Charlene Sandberg. I will cry over that one. She really taught me how to, or she really helped me come out of my shell and learn about myself and how to keep going. And sorry. Even when there's troubles, to keep going and push forward. I also have made many wonderful friends at North Park that have helped me in my journey. And even when I moved to Alaska, there was many North Parkers who were there that I never knew when I went to North Park, but we have become the best of friends simply because we have that North Park connection. And I think those struggles at North Park helped me begin that journey of being able to push through the hard times. And those struggles pale in comparison to the things I had to endure this last year.